I'm going to read a description of starvation to you, and I want you to take a guess about the situation and country that it's describing after I'm done. Starvation is not the dramatic thing one so often reads and imagines, of people in mobs crying for food and falling over in the streets. The starving, those who are dying, never say anything, and one rarely sees them. They first become listless and weak. They react quickly to cold and chills. They sit staring in their rooms or lie listlessly in their beds. One day, they just die. The doctor usually diagnoses malnutrition and complications resulting therefrom. Old women and kids usually die first because they are weak and are unable to get out and scrounge for the extra food it takes to live. It's pretty hard for an American who has lacked enough food to become ravenously hungry, perhaps only once or twice in a lifetime, to understand what real starvation is. What was being described was a situation in Germany, 1946, during the Allied occupation. As most of you probably don't know, because I didn't know this, and I'm a pretty astute student of history, that America is responsible for killing millions of German civilians in the period immediately following the end of World War II. I'm going to read some more here. Throughout all of 1945, the Allied forces of occupation ensured that no international aid reached ethnic Germans. It was directed that all relief went to non-German displaced persons, liberated Allied POWs, and concentration camp inmates. During 1945, it was estimated that the average German civilian in U.S. and the United Kingdom occupation zones received 1,200 calories a day. Meanwhile, non-displaced persons were receiving 2,300 calories a day through emergency food imports and Red Cross help. In early October 1945, the UK government privately acknowledged in a cabinet meeting that German civilian adult death rates had risen to 4 times the pre-war levels, and death rates among German children had risen by 10 times the pre-war levels. General Lucius Clay stated in October 1945 that, undoubtedly, a large number of refugees had already died of starvation, exposure, and disease. The death rate in many places has increased several-fold, and infant mortality is approaching 65% in many places. By the spring of 1946, German observers expect that epidemics of malnutrition will claim 2.5 to 3 million victims between Oder and the Elbe. U.S. occupation forces were under strict orders not to share their food with the German population, and this was also applied to their wives and when they arrived later in occupation. The women were under orders not to allow their German maids to get a hold of any leftovers. The food was to be destroyed or made inedible. Although in view of the starving German population facing them, many housewives chose to disregard these official orders. Nevertheless, according to U.S. intelligence survey from a German university professor reportedly said, "Your soldiers are good-natured and good ambassadors, but they create unnecessary ill will to pour 20 liters of leftover cocoa in the gutter when it is badly needed in our clinics. It makes it hard for me to defend American democracy against my countrymen." In 1946, 34 U.S. senators petitioned that private relief organizations be allowed to help in Germany and Austria, stating that the desperate food situation in occupied Germany presents a picture of such frightful horror as to stagger the imagination. Evidence which increasingly marks the United States as an accomplice in a terrible crime against humanity. Criticism of the situation increased. Senator William Langer stated in a speech in the United States Congress, "Among the crimes with which this Nazi leadership has been charged is the crime of systemic and mass starvation of racial or political minorities or opponents. Yet to our utter horror, we discover that our own policies have merely spread those same conditions. I hold in my hands absolutely authentic photographs which have been taken at the beginning of the winter in the city of Berlin. These photographs are interchangeable for horror with the photographs which we became familiar with from Dachau, Mauthausen, Buchenwald, and other extermination camps. These are photographs of children between the ages of 5 and 14. February 17, 1946. German males from 14 to 65 and women from 15 to 50 were subject to compulsory labor. The penalty for disobedience was imprisonment and having their ration cards taken away, a penalty that the International Military Tribunal declared inhuman when it was inflicted by the Germans. So if you don't come and work as a slave for the American government, we're going to starve you. Not only are we going to starve you, but we're going to throw you in prison too, so you can just rot in a hole. I mean, children. Could you imagine starving a 14-year-old boy? Could you imagine knowingly starving a 15-year-old girl and enslaving her? This is what our government engaged in on a genocidal scale. Did you know that? Where is this being taught in our history classes? I don't understand how this could escape the U.S. history books. How this, I don't even know what to say. I think there should be a German Holocaust memorial, and I think it should be stuck on the front of the White House lawn. And every time the President of the United States wakes up in the morning, he'll have to look out his window and see a reminder of how evil our government is. Just how evil we were, and just how evil we are today. Every time a photo op takes place with a foreign dignitary on the White House lawn, in the background there should be a picture of a starving German. This is insane. During the Civil War, I think we lost around 700,000 Americans. You know, more Americans were outright killed in the Civil War than in any other war in U.S. history. We put that number to shame. During peacetime in Germany, we killed twice as many Germans. Twice as many Germans. Maybe more. They're saying 2.5 to 3 million civilian deaths caused directly by U.S. government actions. And this is reported nowhere. Nobody covers it. Nobody mentions it. I didn't see it in any history books. I'm 34 years old, and this is the first time I've learned our government has outright killed 3 million German civilians. And let's not... I knew about horrors of war, such as the firebombing of Dresden that our government engaged in. That outright killed 25,000 people and made destroyed about 75,000 homes along with that as well. But this is the first time I've ever heard anything about the U.S. outright starving 3 million Germans to death. But what do we hear about? Oh, that Berlin airlift! We went and we saved these starving Germans, the evil Soviets, they had cut them off, and oh, what were we to do? We had an airlift! But they don't talk about the 3 million people we outright killed, the 1.3 million German POWs we outright killed, and all the children we starved to that prior to that. And there was a guy named Morgenthau. He was the U.S. Treasury Secretary. His proposed plan, this is from the U.S. Treasury Secretary, his proposed plan was to exterminate 25 million Germans. 25 million of them, to ensure that the country could never wage war again. To make sure you guys don't wage war again, we're just going to kill y'all. This was the U.S. government official plan that was put forth. This is insane. Government is evil. It doesn't matter if it's the U.S. government, the Soviet government, Hitler, Mao, Stalin, whether it's Ahmadinejad, it doesn't matter who it is. It is government, the institution of government that is evil. And particularly governments that have central bank, which makes all of this possible.